Coming up today on Retiring Well, we'll be talking with you about how to prepare for a recession. That's something that everyone wants to be prepared for, along with costs to include in your retirement budget. So valuable to be paying attention on that, and how to manage your 401k in a recession. And lastly, common scams that target seniors. It's sad but true, those exist today. So all of this and a whole lot more coming up right now on Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Let's talk about the not so fun topic here, or concern of how to prepare for a recession. Now let's assume you're already retired or extremely close to retirement and a recession hits. And what should you be doing? Well, first, hopefully you have a plan in place well in advance of this, a retirement plan that maps out all this so you have confidence heading into this, so there doesn't have to be any great overall changes. There might be some tweaks along the way, but there shouldn't have to be an overwhelming change to your plan just because this happens. Because think of this. Black swan events. You ever heard people talk about that? What is that? In the investment world, it's basically the unpredictable, very rare thing that happens that typically has extreme negative consequences. So doesn't happen often, can't predict it, and hurts pretty bad when it happens. Well, these things can happen anytime. Look back in history. They actually happen more often than we think, or they're supposed to. But, you know, the 9/11, 2008, you know, COVID pandemic, stuff like this, various wars, all this sort of stuff. These are these black swan events that, looking back, people try to say they can predict, but really it's easy to after it happened, right? We can talk about that. But these are things that negatively can impact that. So you should be having conversations with your financial advisor about the investments you have, how they fit in your plan, what are the advantages, but what is the risk associated with that? How could that negatively impact you financially, and what is that downside you have? If you're taking income from your portfolio to live on in retirement, these risks are even far greater, right? You don't want to have to be drawing from a balance that's going down because of performance and start pulling it down because you need that money. So when you're building this plan out for your financial success and your retirement, hopefully you have assets set in there that maybe aren't so dependent on the market, that when a market is down, they don't feel that as much, or maybe still producing interest that you can live off of, so you can leave that money alone that maybe is negatively impacted for more longer term needs, giving it time to grow back. Again, when we look at retirement, it's not just this pot of money. It's not a 401k statement anymore. Think of it like a timeline. Hopefully you don't need all this money day one in your retirement. We probably will need that over a 20, 30, 40-year length of time. So we need to map that out over this, and there's a lot of factors that come into play with that. If you don't have a retirement plan, or you have one you don't feel confident in, give us a call. Let Centennial Wealth sit down with you and review this and walk through and help you build confidence in this plan so you can understand where your income is coming from in a recession or outside of a recession. It shouldn't matter what that looks like. Again, we'd love to sit down with you for a no cost, no obligations visit so you can plan to retire well.
Well, there's a topic that seems to be on everybody's mind in today's world that's going on right now, and that's the recession. What to do or how to prepare for that recession that seems like it's just around the corner. And you know, I've seen a lot of clients recently where they've got cash on the sidelines and they don't want to invest because they think the recession is coming, or they've got money in the market, they think the recession's coming, and they've pulled it back to cash, and it's kind of just sitting there, not really doing much for them. And you know, with the way that interest rates are right now, there's so many different opportunities out there to get that cash that you've got on the sidelines actually doing something for you without putting it into the stock market and worrying about a recession or a potential recession down the road. So like right now, for example, we've got CDs that are over 4.5% for a 1-year CD. You've got money market accounts that are earning over 4.5% as well, and that's just just money, cash sitting in your brokerage account, just earning that interest, okay? Other opportunities are with fixed annuities. Fixed annuities, very simply, are basically CDs with insurance companies, and those rates are really high right now as well compared to history. You could get a 3-year that's paying over 5%. So just know that you don't need to keep your cash in the savings account not doing much for you. There are investment alternatives out there to get a decent return and still not be in the stock market.
Great job, Nick, explaining what some of those options are. And I would like to add, those rates on the fixed annuities or the CDs, those fluctuate quite frequently. And so I recently had a case where a person was sitting in their 401k and they pegged this about a year ago. They got nervous with the market and they went to cash in a money market account. And when we looked at that, it was making 1.6%. Well, they happened to be 60 years old. And so what we're doing is we're going to be using the in-service rollover option that allows them to move that 401k money over to a traditional IRA, and now we can go get those fixed rates or those money market accounts that are paying 3-4 times as much in interest. And what the client that I was helping with, what they were most relieved is that they started their planning process. Planning over procrastination is the most powerful thing I think that you can do. And so if you're sitting there and you're wondering, I just am fearful to meet with somebody, I don't know what I have, please don't. We love to teach first, educate you, and then you'll know what decisions that you need to make. So Nick, why should they keep watching? What's coming up next?
Well, we're going to be talking about costs to include in your retirement budget, and then how to invest in your 401k if a recession is on the horizon. You don't want to miss it.
If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos. Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
Let's talk about some different costs that you're going to want to include in your retirement budget. So when preparing for retirement, what is the amount of money that you spend now versus what you think is going to be your expenses in retirement? It might surprise you, but they might be very, very similar. So I'd start with a budget worksheet. Why don't you look at the past several months of your credit card statement if you run a lot of your charges through the credit card and sort of see what are those different areas where you're spending money, and that's something that you can evaluate whether you anticipate continuing to spend that amount in your retirement years. Let's start with your housing budget. This is likely the largest part of your budget. If you have a mortgage, that might be something as you're preparing for retirement. Is that a key focus to try and pay that mortgage off prior to retirement? That's typically a family's largest expense, is that cost. And so if you can get that paid off and get that eliminated, puts you in a much better position in retirement. What about your property taxes, your home insurance, different maintenance costs for the house? The list goes on, as you can imagine, as a homeowner. What about health insurance? That's an area where you've got your Medicare Parts A and B, which currently in 2022 stand at $170.10 per person, so you can budget that in, but if you're higher income, you might pay more. But along with that, there's different probably Medigap plans that you're going to be paying for. So figure that out, and that's a key piece. What about taxes? Traditional IRA, 401k withdrawals, those are going to be taxable to you. At age 72, you have required minimum distributions from those different retirement accounts. And a lot of times people come and get to retirement, they say, well, I want to buy this boat or this car or whatever it might be. I'll just use my 401k or IRA. Well, that might surprise you what the tax implications are for taking such a large withdrawal. So you need to consider that. What about your food costs? You might have more time to cook at home, or you might have more time now to think, well, I'll go out for lunch or dinner, whatever that might be. So you want to budget that in to the overall plan. Having an emergency fund is going to be important for those different home repairs, the new roof that needs to be done in a few years, appliances break down, or vehicle maintenance, whatever that might be. Entertainment, here in northern Michigan, there's plenty to do outside that doesn't cost anything, but again, there's a lot of fun things that also cost money to enjoy. Travel, that's one of the areas that I enjoy hearing from our clients, is all the unique adventures that they take in retirement. And what about grandchildren? Maybe you want to spoil them a little bit. So again, there's a lot of different costs that come up in retirement. I encourage you to go through and map that budget out for you and your family.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Back again to talk about recession. Now let's talk about assuming you're still working. How do you manage that 401k if a recession shall hit? Now one, hopefully you've thought about this before it actually happens. Revisiting risk tolerance, feeling what your comfort level is, and maybe most importantly, how much time do you have left while you're still working? How many years do you have left before you might start needing this money? So again, when negative times happen, our emotions tend to want to overreact and try to compensate and make changes. Slow down, let's think rationally and look through this. So oftentimes, people want to start chasing past performance. They want to look to see what is done the best. Think of sports. Folks, do we ride that old, I don't want to say old, that player that we're used to that's done the best for us every single time out there? They've got us some maybe championships, they've done well, but they can't play forever. Times change, right? There's a new generation. Investments are similar. There's some great things that have been out there a long time that are still doing well, but things evolve over that. You remember, just like you always hear with investment disclosures, past performance is no indicator of future success, all that. Well, there's a reason for that. Just because it did well over a certain period of time doesn't guarantee it's going to do it again. So don't get caught in chasing that past performance. Next thing, timing the market is really hard. Our emotions want to say, well, I'm just going to sit on the sidelines here. I'm going to go to cash until things get better, and then I'm going to go back in and do good. Well, maybe you get lucky and that happens every now and then, but that's really hard to do. It's really even hard to do for some of the best institutional money managers in the world, not let alone somebody that's trying to work full time, maybe raise a family, and they're checking in on this thing every other weekend or something like that. Take a look at this chart I have up on the screen now. This is showing some of the best days in the market. Over half of the best days in the stock market happen during bear markets, during down times. So if you were out of that, you're missing some of those best days. The smallest portion of this little pie chart, these are the best days that happen during good times. So usually when we have some of these rebounds and stuff happening, oftentimes they happen rapidly, and they happen when it still doesn't feel good out there. The little bar chart coming up over here, this is showing the effects of missing the best days of the market. They can be so good that the impacts can be so great. That first fall off from that peak there is only missing the 10 best days of the market. So folks, timing the market is really hard, and it can hurt you as a long-term investor. Again, if you're still working and trying to struggle through managing your 401k through challenging times, stick to the plan, keep a level head, and make sure you're addressing all these issues so you can have a confident retirement ahead.
What a great couple segments on retirement planning, costs to include in those budgets, how you might want to allocate your 401k to, recession-proof it. One of the best things that I feel like we get to do is income planning. And we have a tool called Retirement Analyzer that will take in all of the different data of your retirement and financial plan, puts it into one program, and then it'll project out until you're over 100 years old. And we can look at it year by year, how you're going to be situated, where your income is going to be coming from, where your risk is, what kind of tax burden you might have, how do you mitigate that, where your health care is going to be coming from, what your legacy might be. You can see it's a pretty powerful tool. And one of the things that we have in that tool is what we call an inflation rider, or an inflation kicker on it. And so what it'll do is it'll take whatever expense that we put in there right now. For instance, your retirement budget, we could just put that number in there, and then we get to pick what inflation rate of return we want to use. And what that will do is, for example, 3% inflation, it'll increase your expenses 3% every single year till you're 100 years old. Sometimes clients will come in and they're like, yeah, last June inflation was 9%. What happens if we keep having that kind of inflation? We go to the one little button, put 9%, and say, if that happens, here's what your whole plan is going to look like. And it's really powerful, because then we can look at the history of inflation. We can do different things that help people understand how to best strategize their retirement plan, but they get to see a whole picture. I know, Nick, you had some people come in about the 401ks because they're really worried about recession.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very hot topic as well, is what to invest in within that 401k if we think a recession is right around the corner. And a lot of clients that come into the office, they don't really know what options they have within that 401k. In fact, I had a couple come over from Alpena to the Gaylord office just recently. They plopped their 401k statements on the table and said, I don't know what kind of options I have to help mitigate if a recession comes down the line. And typically when we're looking at these different 401k options, most companies have what's called a stable value fund within those 401ks. And that would be your safest option to invest those funds in if you think a recession is coming down the line. Now, you're typically not going to get the greatest rate of return with those because it doesn't fluctuate. It's a stable value fund. But by investing in that allocation, you should mitigate any kind of stock market losses in the market. So that's one that I'd highly suggest you take a look at. All right, coming up next, we're going to be talking about common senior scams.
If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos.
So Art Canfield and I grew up in Traverse City here together, about a mile down the road from each other.
John and I have been best buddies since we were in kindergarten.
Met each other in kindergarten at Glen Loomis Elementary.
I still remember one of the earliest memories of John and I connecting way back in our kindergarten class.
We always would have sort of a business mindset when we were trading our basketball cards and football cards of, okay, what's the value of this versus that?
We had all these dreams of playing in the NFL together.
He was the center on the football team. I was the quarterback.
I've been protecting him my whole life, and so now we get to do it in the business world.
With a low bass, here for the thrill, I don't need a chaser. Wanna vibe it to get away. Shimmy,
Each of us stood up in each other's weddings, and now we've enjoyed seeing our families grow together and spend time together.
Working with John and Art is awesome. The camaraderie that they have, the banter that you hear on a day-to-day basis is just, it's so much fun.
They're very authentic. These people are in it for the right reasons, and they're really genuinely doing what they can to help people. That, to me, makes all the difference, that I can feel good about the work that I do working with them.
Who they are as people, their values, they truly want to help people. That kind of permeates through the whole culture of our office.
Being so similar but different in certain ways is such an asset, not only for our team, but also for our clients, to be able to have, I think, our experience in valuing relationships so importantly.
Something that's so vital within business is having that trusting relationship. As Art and I have had that trust built over the past 35 plus years now, so we have that confidence knowing that if I'm not there to make a decision, you've got a business partner that you trust implicitly to make those decisions and not question at all what direction that he's going with it or the business is going. So it's just been sort of a dream to be able to work alongside your best friend.
Every year, thieves target individuals to get access to their personal information and ultimately money. And a lot of times, they're kind of focusing in on seniors. In fact, seniors lose about $3 billion annually to scams, according to the FBI. So if you haven't come across a scam yet, there's probably a good likelihood that you might run into one in the future. So that's why in today's segment, I just want to cover a few of the more common scams that are out there so that you know what they are, and hopefully if you come across anything, you'll reference this and kind of raise a red flag that something might not be correct. So one of the first scams that I want to talk about is a charity scam. So this is when a bad actor is going to call you up and say, hey, it'd be awesome if you donated to this flood relief charity or something like that. It's oftentimes referencing a natural disaster where they're playing on your emotions. I know just recently over this past spring in Gaylord, we had that devastating tornado. It was just so surreal to see the damage right in my hometown, and it makes you want to do something. It makes you want to help. And so I can see how those bad actors might prey on us to kind of funnel our funds to them instead of where the people that actually need that relief. You know, in my hometown, what we did for that is we went to our local church and we determined how much money we wanted to give and let it be up to them as to who's going to get the money in the best way possible. And that's what we always recommend. Before you donate any money to charity, make sure you understand, do your due diligence, research that company before you give away your hard-earned money. Another common scam is those government imposter scams. So this is when a bad actor is going to call you up and say, hey, I'm from the IRS and you owe us back taxes. Please give me your credit card information so you can take care of that back taxes right away. I'll give you one hint. The IRS is probably never going to call you, okay? If you owe back taxes or there's something messed up with your taxes, they're going to send you a letter, okay? And even if you do get a letter from the IRS, I always recommend that you bring that into your accountant as well, just to double check and continue to verify that that is the case and that you may owe the IRS some money. So don't act over the phone. Don't give your credit card information to somebody you don't know over the phone. Another common scam is those internet scams. There are a dime a dozen out there. A very common one is used through email phishing, where they're going to send you an email and want you to click on a link. Usually it'll offer something spectacular that seems too good to be true, and it probably is, but the reason they want you to click on that link is so that they'll get access to your computer and ultimately your personal and financial information. So it's always a great practice to make sure that you verify the sender before you click on that link. And then lastly, another common scam is a Medicare scam. So this is again where another bad actor is going to give you a call and say, hey, do you want to add on a service to your Medicare plan? Typically they'll ask for that credit card information, and that's always got to be a red flag. If they want the payment right then and there, don't respond to that. Always, we just encourage you to meet face-to-face if you want to add on a plan to your Medicare plan. So I hope you found this information valuable. Keep it in the back of the mind so that if you ever come across anything fishy, it might raise a red flag and you don't act on those scams.
Great job, Nick, on that segment. You know, I love that we get to help teach you what you might want to be aware of. And so many times we never ever know who we get to help with our TV show. Here's a list of things of scammers, of people trying to hurt people, and what you might want to be aware of. So if you're sitting there and you're feeling uncomfortable, maybe you gave some information that you felt like wasn't quite right, or you have some stuff coming your way that you're just not sure how to respond to, I highly suggest go find that loved one, go find that neighbor, go find your financial advisor, give us a call. Like, you don't have to do life alone, so don't. You know, reach out for that help, because we come across these things a lot. We know how to respond. We know where you want to be really careful and what you can do in your life to help avoid any future kind of contact. And so, you know, as Nick was going through the list of different strategies, you know, if you're sitting there feeling uncomfortable, my suggestion, definitely reach out and ask somebody to just review what you're facing and get a second opinion from those people that care a lot about you.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of times what I hear is a lot of different scams revolving around Medicare. Medicare is a very, very confusing area. Lots of different parts to it, and you know, those scammers, those bad actors, they really take advantage of that. So just recently I had a client where he had a phone call with some random bad actor, and somehow, some way, that bad actor had a lot of his personal information. Okay, so he didn't feel comfortable with what was going on. He hung up the phone and gave us a call. Now, what we suggested is, you know what, you might want to get a whole new Medicare number, okay? So what he did is he reached out to the Center for Medicare Services and he explained what happened. And they did. They issued him a brand new Medicare number. So again, that's just one example. There's probably so many other examples where, like Jack was saying, make sure that you're reaching out to somebody. Get that second opinion. Don't just sign up for something, give your credit card information over the phone or anything like that. Double check with somebody before making any kind of big decision like that.
You know, we really appreciate that you get to sit there and watch our show, and we really want to add value to your life. So if you're sitting there wondering what a more personalized interaction might look like, please feel free to give us a call. We can meet, we can see where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish. Never any pressure and no obligation. Thank you so much for watching our show. We sincerely appreciate it. We'll see you next week.